Fuck around, make my 40 pop. No popcorn, I pop pistols, reaming my body.
Alright guys, Boruto episode 198. This episode right here is absolutely insane. Boruto is literally already trending on Twitter. Delta is also trending on Twitter. Everybody seems to like this episode, but of course it wasn't necessarily received as well as it should have been, in my opinion, because it wasn't necessarily animated the best. Now, in my opinion, I thought this episode was pretty much animated to how I thought it was going to be animated. I've been saying this from the beginning. I think episode 199 is supposed to be animated a lot better than this episode right here, just because that right there is going to be the climax of this battle. But regardless, I didn't necessarily find any problems with the animation, but of course it would obviously be better with the top tier animation, but I absolutely loved it. I definitely didn't have any problem with it. Delta in this episode though was absolutely amazing. She pretty much showed exactly what she was capable of, and actually did make it seem like Delta actually had some more tricks up her sleeves. This right here is something that I have been waiting for a very long time. The way that I seen it was the fact that the Boruto manga didn't necessarily do Delta as much justice as she should have been done. I think the Boruto anime did a very good job of portraying that. We already knew that Naruto was going to be holding back a lot during this episode, because he didn't necessarily want to pretty much destroy his backyard, and also didn't necessarily want to put the kids in any danger. So obviously Naruto wasn't necessarily going 100%. He wasn't doing any karma transformations. He's probably not necessarily going to do that in the next episode either, but that still doesn't necessarily take away the fact that Delta was literally matching Naruto in speed and strength feats throughout this whole episode. During the first volley, when Naruto was more or less extremely holding back, which is what a lot of people thought it was going to be during the Boruto manga, but when Naruto was extremely holding back, Delta was still holding her own. After that, when Naruto said he was going to go 100%, and then we got to see that insane chakra move that Naruto has, Delta was still holding her own, and even after that volley, Delta was also still holding her own. So on this episode right here, just showed how fast and how strong Delta actually is. But just to go over some of the things that Delta showed us in this episode, I think one of the first things that we did see was obviously her eye dojutsu. This right here has been absolutely hyped up for the past couple of episodes, mainly because a lot of people already understood what was coming. Obviously, a lot of people in the Boruto fandom read the Boruto manga. Delta's dojutsu is a scientific ninja technology, basically taken to the complete other level. Obviously, we did already see a synthetic dojutsu from a character called Kirara, but this right here was a completely different situation. Delta is now able to absorb chakra from her eyes, and also she's able to blast off these beams that pretty much prevents regeneration. This right here is something completely different. But on top of that, you stack on the fact that Delta has showed that she has god level speed, god level strength. So at this particular point, Naruto can't necessarily hit her with any rasenshuriken and anything like that. Naruto can't necessarily overwhelm her with speed and strength, because Delta has already shown that she's able to match that. And not only that, a big part of what makes Delta Delta is her personality, bro. Delta is something completely different. Delta is like one of those old school villains that really takes pride in being a villain. Towards the end, she literally tried to kill himawari. This right here was absolutely insane in the Boruto manga, and this right here, in my opinion, was all fair game. A lot of people are probably not going to necessarily like Delta's character just because of the fact that she went after kids, but there has been a lot of people begging for Naruto to go back to how it used to be. The fastest and the strongest ninjas were not always the winners of the battle. The winner of the battle encompasses that, but also encompasses the strategic planning and also the cunning of the ninja. And when Delta went after the kids, that right there, in my opinion, is pretty much a throwback to exactly how it is. Like literally, if Kawaki did not jump into the battle, Naruto would be dead. 100%. Delta would have won this battle, and I really do not want this to be lost on a lot of people, because at this particular point during the manga, people were literally brushing it off. Now, if this was like a 1v1 Naruto versus Delta, and of course Boruto and himawari was there, Kawaki wasn't there, Naruto would be dead. Delta would have beaten Naruto. Delta would have beaten the legendary shinobi, arguably the strongest and the greatest shinobi that we have ever seen before. Delta would have destroyed him. But enough of bashing my homie Naruto. Naruto in this episode was absolutely amazing as well. I talked about his quote-unquote new chakra mode earlier in this video. That right there looks absolutely amazing. One thing that I definitely do want to point out is that even though it looks amazing right now, I personally think it has the ability to look even more amazing. Like in the Boruto manga, this right here arguably looked better in the Boruto manga than it did in the Boruto anime. And I'm pretty sure you guys remember from episode 189, that art style pretty much mimicked what it looked like in the Boruto manga. And I think if that right there was the situation, if that right there was like the animation, the art style mimicked in this episode, that form would have looked like 10 times better. But the functionality of this chakra mode, I don't necessarily think is going to be anything too crazy. I just personally think that Karma is feeding Naruto a little bit more chakra, and it pretty much made the illusion that Naruto was now going 100%, because Naruto literally just said that he was gonna stop playing around with Delta. But even as Naruto did actually tell Delta, like, hey, I'm gonna be going 100%, he wasn't truly going 100%, and we all understand that, mainly because Kawaki detailed everything in this episode. Kawaki is definitely one of my favorite characters, just in terms of narration. This guy pretty much gets everything that's going on. Kawaki basically tells Boruto that Naruto is actually leading the fight away from the kids. He's pretty much making sure that they don't necessarily get caught in the crossfire. This right here just pretty much signifies exactly how far Naruto has come, because obviously, even during the 4th grade Shinobi War, Naruto was literally in the Sage of Six Paths mode, Naruto would not be able to do something like this. Naruto wouldn't necessarily have the experience to do something like this, and of course, obviously, he probably wouldn't necessarily beat Delta at that particular point, even though that right there is debatable. But regardless, I just think that this right here just signifies exactly how far Naruto has come as not only a shinobi, but also as a tactician. And also, we did get to see the rasenshuriken from Naruto. During this time of the Boruto manga, it was a very huge question of if Naruto is actually in Sage of Six Paths mode, and if he can actually tap into the chakra of all the other tailed beasts. I think this right here pretty much confirmed that he definitely has the ability to tap into the chakra of all the other tailed beasts. The lava style rasenshuriken pretty much comes from the 4 tails. Now, we didn't necessarily get to see the 4 tails in this actual episode. I thought that there was a slight possibility of us seeing Naruto actually ask Son Goku, like, hey, can I use your chakra for this fight? Turned out that that right there wasn't actually the case. I wish that they would have done that, but regardless, we now know that Naruto is actually in Sage of Six Paths mode. But either way, this episode right here was a huge episode for Kawaki himself. I know I talked about him a little bit earlier, but Kawaki in this episode pretty much understood exactly what Naruto felt towards him. And this right here basically started from the beginning of the episode when Naruto told Delta, like, hey, do not touch the kids. And of course, he was basically including Kawaki in that discussion right there. We've seen Kawaki looking on, and we've seen Kawaki feel some sort of way, and I'm pretty sure that played a big role into why he actually did jump in towards the end of the battle. I think that if Kawaki thought that Naruto didn't necessarily have the best intentions in mind for Kawaki, then of course he probably wouldn't have jumped in. And it wasn't just for any regular attack. Kawaki quite literally lost his arm in that blast that he deflected to protect Naruto and himawari. But now after that, the episode was pretty much over. One thing that we do understand is that Delta right now seems like she's completely angry, and it seems like she's probably going to be, as the power scales call it, bloodlust. One of the things that we do understand from the Kado organization is that they pretty much view Kawaki as something very, very delicate, something very, very precious to their overall plan and what they plan to do in the future. So Delta pretty much destroying one of Kawaki's arms is probably not necessarily going to go over well with Jigen, and because of that, Delta's probably going to be even more pissed off in this episode. In fact, she even said that she's going to be more pissed off. So I'm not necessarily sure if that's going to actually translate to Delta being even faster and stronger than she was before in the past. But now we understand that Naruto is probably not necessarily going to play with Delta anymore, mainly because he understands that she is an actual threat to the children. I definitely do want to see exactly what they show in the future or in episode 199. As I said, I expect that episode to be animated a lot better than this episode right here. But this episode right here, episode 198, was about 80% of the fight, and I didn't necessarily expect that to be the case. I actually expect this episode to animate about 60% of the overall battle. It turns out that that right there wasn't the case. But I do want you guys to think about this episode in the comment section below. Was the animation up to par for your guys' standards? Again, I personally thought it was fine. Episode 199 is pretty much the episode that I'm going to be looking forward to have the best animation. But let me know what you guys think. It's been your boy Baara B, and we out.
It's a knife.